All right, good evening and welcome everyone to the special closed session of the Solvang City Council for Monday, October 24th, 2022. I now call the meeting to order at 6:01 PM. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Here.
Councilmember Aruna. Absent. Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Uhrig.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, would you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have, do we want public communication? Michael, do you want to speak now or do you want to do it after for the regular council meeting?
It's a closed session and I'll be leaving.
Okay,
Thank you. I'm Michael Allen Miller. And I don't see a green light giving me 3 minutes notice.
there you go.
Okay, so I don't have any prepared statements right now, partly because of the report I just got back from the sheriff today. It's very disconcerting. I'm going to address the fact that you're having a closed session related to a lawsuit, and because of the circumstances that I have that brought me to Solvang, I'm not going to presume either way that this could or couldn't be related to my situation. Just because I'm not involved doesn't mean that people would not be affecting the administration of the city in order to affect my situation. I know that the manager left. She was Russian. My song has Russian in it. And I don't know that this lawsuit is or is not related, but it was just a big concern that this lawsuit came up and the manager left. And they had to have a meeting about replacing a new manager, so why didn't she give the 2 weeks notice? What I want to make sure that I bring up now in my 3 minutes is 147 of the City Council Code, where you can, the mayor or a majority of the council members can allow me more than 3 minutes to speak. And I specifically brought that up with the clerk, saying, you know, could you maybe put my paper underneath the bottom, and so that I could talk for the remainder. And before I knew that 147 and some other things that I don't have was applicable, and she said no. And there's been other issues with me talking to the clerk, and I know that one of these people are probably the lawyer. And I'm going to put out right now that being an international music producer, I have to have a decent reputation, and I'm trying to establish a worldwide citizens organization to address things that are going on all around the world, and some of them would involve things that are going on in America. And I'm not going to be suing the city for these kind of things, but it would be more like, well, if that did happen, it would be more like for changing policy, changing things that I don't even know. But the point is that the lawyer is here. There's an issue not just with the clerk, with David, with the board member who called the police. There's this issue with the new police chief who was appointed after I discussed several items with several foot patrol officers. He was transferred from professional standards, supposedly, and the report that I got him was just a complete dump. I mean, I would have a private person's arrest order for racketeering based on what I just got from him and the information that we have, but that's pretty tricky. I need all the council members to review this page that I was submitted to the clerk on October 11th to establish my mental health, that I'm in a situation with the music industry, and that when I come in here, I'm not just like a ranting mentally ill person, you know, because of this, that, and the other thing, that I have a legitimate concern about what's been going on here and the problems that I've had where I have not been able to get anything on the agenda, and then now with the new police chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was the last of the speaker slips that I had, and there's no one else in here. So at this point, we'll recess to closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 Subdivision D2, the City Council meet in closed session for a conference with legal counsel on one matter of anticipated litigation.
All right, closed session at 6:06.
Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Check, 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 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. One, two, 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. Mic check, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sounds good.
I gotta check in the online feed as well.
Let's hide on the side.
I always sit right.
Do you?
I can see who's coming in, who's going out.
Like,
Check, check, check. Test, test. 1, 2, 2, 2. Final mic check, 1, 2.
We'll reconvene back to open session at 6:29. City Attorney, would you let us know what happened?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 Subdivision D2 on one matter of anticipated litigation. There was no reportable action.
Thank you. And that will close the closed session at 6:30. And with that, get rid of that one. Good evening and welcome, everyone, to the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for Monday, October 24th, 2022. I now call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Here.
Councilmember Arona.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Euring.
Here. Councilmember Infante, would you please lead us in the pledge?
My pleasure. Stand at the hand of your heart and we'll begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And moving on to, going to change the agenda just real quick. For our first public communication, I just wanted to give it to our police chief. He had a sheriff report, and we haven't had one for a while, so I know he'll take a little bit longer than the 3 minutes, so. Chief?
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Valencia. I'm the new lieutenant for Solvang, the city of Solvang. And simply what I wanted to do is, from what I understand, is the chief of police hadn't been around. He's had some issues, and we just haven't had our up-to-date recap on our stats. And if that's something that interests you, I'd like to do this on occasion when I can and bring you up to speed. I won't talk about specifics, but I just think it's fair that the city understands the current state of stats that we have for this year. So we have one forcible rape this year. Our assaults are at 20 this is as of month of August. So we'll still add September stats in. Our burglary totals are at 11, with 7 of them being commercial burglaries. Reported thefts are 30, and understand all these stats are specific to Solvang City, and they're with case numbers and actual victims. The property value of stolen goods right now is at $176,957, and we've only recovered $6,000 worth. We've had 5 vehicle thefts within the city, and 4 vehicles have been recovered. We've had 20 car accidents. The injuries out of those collisions are at 2, with the persons injured at 2. We've had 43 citations in the city. We've had 18 DUI arrests. Last year at this time, we were at 22. Our towed vehicles are at 4. Felony arrests in the city are 22. Misdemeanor arrests are 72. Year-to-date, our calls to service for the city of Solvang are 3,386. We've had 95 of our cases forward to our detective bureau for follow-up. And we've had 87 of those cases closed at this time. So I just wanted to update everybody on the stats. I think it's important that the city knows. I can go into specifics at another time, but I realize that's not the topic, and I kind of want to get up to speed so the city understands where we are in law enforcement, and we can have an open discussion another time when I'm on the agenda. And if no one has any questions, I'll be finished for the night.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just one quick one.
Go ahead.
Chief, how do we compare with other cities at this population range? Do you know?
I haven't done those stats yet on the other cities in our range, but what I have done, which would take more time, is I've actually gone back. So I've included 2022, 21, 2020 for specifically the city of Solvang. I do have the Buellton stats, but I didn't bring them with me, but I can get them on the next meeting or when we actually have the agenda where I can go over stats. What I did for the city of Buellton is I actually put up on the board a pin map of what's occurring and where, and the exact crimes that are occurring and the times and dates, and it was really well received, so they understood what
That's
exactly.
informative. I'd like to see that here, yeah.
What's going on in the areas that it's happening. So that was really important, and I can do that, but I just realized I wasn't on the agenda, and I offered this, and he accepted my
Got it.
offer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right. So next, public comment. I have speaker slips. First one up is Denise Elamine.
Hello there.
Hello.
I'm Denise Elamine, and I am here to talk, well, actually, to thank you, City Council, Robert Clark, Claudia Rona, Charlie Urick, Mark Fonte, and Jim Thomas for raising our water bill to the highest level that it's been since I moved in. And I just want to thank you guys before you break up and some of you move out of the area because the water's too high. I just want this to be a part of the record in history that it's because of you five that at the end of 2027, my bill will be almost $200 and I haven't flushed one toilet. So I just wanted to make sure that I thanked you guys each individually because I want you to know that it really matters what the city council does in this area. And once you leave, you should have a statue out in the front as the best water raisers in Solvang history. So I just wanted to give you guys all a clap for that. And also I wanted to add that once you raise our rates of water, you had the nerve to put a Measure U on the ballot to raise our city taxes 1%. And I want to applaud you for that also, because you're not only are you taking money out of people's mouths to feed their kids for water rates, you have the nerves to ask for 1% so the chambers of commerce can have parties that are half filled. So I just wanted to let you know, and if anybody out here doesn't know how to come and talk for your 3 minutes to let this wonderful city council know how much you appreciate them, you can feel free to call me and I will educate you on how to do it. We should have a line out here and we should applaud them because you can vote November the 11th, and there are a couple that are running November the 11th. So if you want your bill to go up any higher than $200 without flushing your toilet, then you want to keep the same ones in. If not, you may want to get some new ones. Thank you guys, and great job.
Thanks, Denise.
Welcome.
Next up, I have Eric Vasquez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Eric Vasquez. I'm representing a company called Dark Star. We've been doing some business here in the city of Solvang for several years. Most notably, there are 2 residential development projects. You're probably familiar with one behind Chomp. It's under construction right now. It was approved by the Planning Commission in 2020. Never made it to this level. I think it was well received. We have a second project on the corner of Alamo Pintado and Village Lane. Currently, it's in second plan check for construction documents. So that would be construction, public works, and engineering. We expect or anticipate having those plans issued probably around December of this year. I understand you're going to be discussing a possible building moratorium or something similar to that. I just want to ask that you consider that projects such as mine that has an issued development plan, that an exemption be made for those projects. We spent a lot of time getting to the point that we're at now, a lot of expense with the engineering and the architecture and the structural, all the things that go into building these types of projects. I did want to point out that both of those projects, these are not multi-million-dollar mansions. These are smaller units, condominiums and apartments and townhomes that are really targeted at middle-income families. I think it's something that the city of Solvang needs, and I'd really like to continue on with those projects. The last thing I want to point out is both of those projects, where they're located, they are on parcels that the city about 10 years ago, I don't know exactly when, rezoned from a different type of zoning to residential zoning so that the city could meet its RENA numbers. So we're really trying to get that going. And I just don't want to be caught in that kind of gray area where there's a building moratorium. I have an approved projects, but I can't do anything with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael Miller.
Before I begin by stating my, can we restart that because I didn't state my name and I wasn't really ready.
It's okay, Michael.
Michael Miller. I'll begin with comments directed to online viewers. It may take substantial citizen involvement to address crime, corruption, and unpatriotic activity should there be a failure with Solvang City Council. I made comments at the 6 o'clock closed session related to a potential lawsuit. Other applicable comments were made 2 weeks ago. Evidence that will help the objective individual determine my testimony and assertions are rational and plausible is found online at lipstickalley.com. Forums, celebrity gossip, subforum international gossip. Saturday at about 3:45 Pacific Standard Time. A post titled Lord and LSA's Favorite Blacklisted. This post has facts about 3 songs by a famous artist interacting with one by a non-famous artist. That far exceeds the possibility of coincidence. Another video connects me to the unknown artist previous to those songs. A new police chief was appointed to the city of Solvang a couple weeks ago after several officers were showed computer screenshots of the information contained in the international gossip post. I was told the new chief was promoted from professional standards internal affairs. I do not believe his promotion and appointment is purely coincidental. Last, I want to point out to the online viewers local media corruption. A few pages were delivered to the Santa Barbara Independent Alternative Weekly newspaper. One of those pages asserted suspicious or criminal activity by a prosecution investigator, Dan McGrew. A couple weeks later, there was a piece to contact him at the police department for tips related to some church burglaries, and he hadn't been working for the police department for over a year, and the district attorney didn't have that case yet. A short time after the Indy Post ran this information, the Montecito paper ran an article about the quote-unquote up-and-coming journalist and this incorrect information. So that's all I have prepared for today. Before I get to anything, I have to address the fact that I've not been able to speak more than 3 minutes, even though it's allowed by 147. Either the mayor or the majority of the council, because of problems that I've been having continually with the clerk that just cannot be now at this point ineptitude. She didn't know about that because I've not been able to get anything resolution or agended. And now I'm really flummoxed and wasn't able to finish any of this because of this crap report by the sheriff. And this is something that I know that there are study sessions. I don't know if I need a motion for initial time because I'm not really prepared, but if I've already prepared, if I've already spoken enough over the last few weeks that we could get a motion for a study session instead of additional minutes today to address these issues. This one was received October 11th, 2022. This is the songs. No motion for additional time or motion for a study session?
Michael, you can have 30 more seconds, okay?
I need 30 more seconds.
That's all I have for any items that are public comment on non-agenda. Is there anyone in the audience right now wishing to speak on any items on either the consent agenda and/or non-regular agenda? Seeing none, we'll bring it out to Zoom. There's one, looks like I see a hand raised. Charlie, I can't see the last name. Schaefer. Go ahead.
Yes, great. Thank you for your time. I want to speak about our water bill. I'm a new homeowner in the Alisal Ranch. We moved here from another area of the Santa Ynez Valley and immediately noticed an increase to our water bills. While our lot size is
Charlie,
larger.
if I can.
Yes, sir.
Right now, these are for items that are not on the regular agenda, and that is going to be item, I think that's item number 6 on our regular agenda. So you'll have public comment at that time. This is for items that are not on the regular agenda or only on our consent agenda. So you can make those comments, but when it comes up in the order of the agenda.
Very good. I wasn't aware of what was and what was not on the agenda, so I'll patiently wait over here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Want to explain when those are posted? Explain to the residents when
Yep.
the agendas are posted.
Give me a second on the broadcast. Sorry. I'm getting messages that parts of the words are not coming through. There was nothing coming through for a while. You did something, and now there's parts of words, but it's not apparently getting complete on Comcast.
Yeah, I've
Thank you.
And Charlie, just so you know, you can go to cityofsolvang.com, look up the city council for agenda for tonight, and you can see the items that are on the agenda. It lists items that are on the regular calendar, or regular items, it says. Usually listed after the public comments and the city manager's reports. So,
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
okay. So that was all I see for public comment out there for any items not on the agenda. And moving on to city manager report.
Okay, well, I'm going to just give you a verbal report. Just new on this whole process that you guys are doing now. A couple of things on Measure U. We sent out an educational flyer to the registered voters within the city, and there was a little faux pas in the mail merge where people's first names got changed to the person that was in the line next to them. So you probably all received one with a new first name. So sorry about that. It was unintentional, and it has created quite a bit of confusion where people's names are incorrect on the brochure. So sorry about that, and that was meant to come to the last name and that address. So, and then there was some confusion also on Measure U on whether it was a 1 cent or 1%, and it is a 1% sales tax to the purchase of property or purchase of material. Also want to report that our 28th annual Halloween haunted house is coming up October 28th and 29th from 6 to 9:30 right over here at the annex, and it's called Trails of Terror. So come out and be scared. And then on the futures calendar, there was quite a few items that were pushed for future agenda items, and honestly, I'm having trouble trying to figure out where you guys were on request and things. So give me a little time to try to get those things agendized in a proper form. There was quite a few pieces on there on that last future agenda that there's no way I'm going to meet those goals to catch up on what you guys have been doing. So I'm going to work my hardest. I've been working pretty hard for 2 weeks. I tell you, I got more information downloaded into my brain than I've had in a long time. So I'm trying to digest it and bring forward some very good agenda items for you in the future. So that's my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the staff report?
I do just have one question. Do we have any updates on the Salute to the Veterans event?
It's going to San Ynez.
Okay. Oh, okay.
No parade here. Everything will happen in San Ynez. I had one request of the advanced calendar in what I'm seeing and it's showing up on page 4. December 5, it says a special city council meeting, housing element preliminary review for discussion. I think 3 of us will not be here, including the city manager. December 5.
Yeah.
It's a
Where would that?
Viking Christmas party.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there to council here.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that because obviously the general plan is it's starting to hit a critical wall with the housing element
Right.
approval portion of that. So let me relook at that and see if that schedule can be modified. I see that date now.
Yeah, and that's why I just wanted to be clear
Yeah.
on that one.
Okay.
So,
Since it is a special meeting, we can take a look at that.
Okay.
Moving it to a different day.
all right.
All right.
Thank you. All right, that's all I had. And item number 3, moving on to council comments. Is there any council member wishing to make any comments at this time?
I have a question.
Councilmember Thomas, go ahead.
I've gotten some emails and requests trying to clarify the election process for the replacement when you move to mayor. How is the person, number 1, selected? And number 2, does that person have to be from the new 1st district, or can it be all around?
the council has two options. Can either appoint or call a special election to fill the vacancy once it occurs. They can't really do anything until the vacancy occurs, and that would occur after the election. As far as filling the position, since the seat that is being filled was not subject to district election at the time it was elected, it would be presumably at an at-large appointment if the council chose to do an appointment, or at-large special election. That's my understanding of the seat that is being filled for Councilmember Infante should he be elected mayor.
If I may add to it, and please correct me if I'm wrong. One is, I believe our policy states that we will appoint a replacement when a council member leaves for whatever reason. And second is that if we appoint at large, and it's not in District 1 or 2, that'll be reelected in 2024, which would be the end of my term as a council member. If they are, they can be elected, but they could not run again because they wouldn't be up for election. The third part of this is at some point in time in the future, I presume, we're going to want to ask for people who are interested in it and get something from them. But it will be, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, please, Mr. Attorney, the 4 new council members will have to have a majority vote for that replacement for this position.
That's correct. Yeah.
Those are right?
That is correct on the appointment portion of it. As far as the policy, I'm not aware of specifically where that policy was. I looked for it in the code. Are you referring to a resolution that was done?
So there was a policy that the council created right when I left, which was then tossed out after I left for the new council when they replaced Ryan Toussaint's spot. So there was a policy that we worked on because we had 3 or 4, I think 3 vacancies during my term here. And so, yeah, we had a set policy. It talked about the next highest vote getter and those types of things. Those, looking back historically, those were taken away. So that policy no longer exists as the council.
Okay.
So we had agendized for that first meeting in December for the new council to discuss what they'd like to do. One of the options could be to take applications from just members in that district, just residents in that district at large, and just know the person would know it's a 2-year term. So we'll present those options to you, to the seated council on December 14th.
Suggesting then that if we make the decision on how we're going to replace this position, then it's going to be another month or so before we have people in, so we'll be running on 4 council members?
You would. It depends on how quickly. I mean, you could say we'll take applications for a week or 2 weeks. That would be
right at Christmas
the council.
time.
They'd have to make that, yeah. And this is, as I said, it happened. It's not the first time it's happened. I think when we first created an elected mayor, there was the issue when Mayor Toussaint took over from a council seat. That I know there was another one. I think there might have been one other when Hans Deuce got off the council.
Yeah.
So there's some history of that. Yeah, we just we'll be presenting that, but there will be a gap where you won't have a full council.
So we won't be voting on December 12th. Will there be 4 of us will be sworn in?
You'll be voting on the process.
And we'll vote on the process, and then eventually we'll pick somebody. Heck of a deal. Thank you.
Any other council comments?
Oh, that's very clear.
I just had a comment real quick, just starting yesterday, the 24th through October 31st is Red Ribbon Week nationally, and just wanted to support all of the agencies that we have in the valley and in our county that work with folks on keeping people away from drugs, and St. Ines Valley Youth Coalition that helps with that, for people helping people are locally here, and give them a little shout out for their support. That's all I have.
The election is on November 8th, not November 11th, just so the public knows.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. consent agenda items. Madam Clerk, would you just please go over the instructions on that?
All items listed under consent are considered and acted upon one motion, unless discussion is requested by council members.
Is there any questions of the council, the consent agenda? I just had one addition correction on page 8. Hans Deuce and Mary Ellen Rio. Her last name is Rio. So I just want to make sure that got in there. If we can make that addition, yeah. So, other than that, that's all I had.
And those red vines are getting eaten
They're getting
quite
eaten
quickly in
quickly.
my office.
The red vines, yes, I'm sure they are. I know I've had a few. All right. Is there any council members wishing to pull any of the items, or can I just have a motion?
I'll make a motion for approve the consent agenda as written.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Eurig.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. Moving on to item number 5, business items. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title?
Discussion and possible action to introduce for first reading ordinance number 220360, amending Title 10 of the Solvang Municipal Code and adopting by reference codes comprising the 2022 edition of the California Building Standards Code, California Code of Regulations, Title 24, Parts 1 through 12, including the California Building Code Volumes 1 and 2, 2022 edition, incorporating and amending the 2021 International Building Code. The California Residential Code, 2022 edition, incorporating and amending the 2021 International Residential Code. The California Electrical Code, 2022 edition, incorporating and amending the 2020 National Electrical Code. The California Mechanical Code, 2022 edition, incorporating and amending the 2021 Uniform Mechanical Code. The California Plumbing Code, 2022 edition, incorporating and amending the 2021 Uniform Plumbing Code. The California Energy Code, 2022 edition. The California Fire Code, 2022 edition, incorporating and amending the 2021 International Fire Code. The California Existing Building Code, 2022 edition. The California Green Building Standards Code, 2022 edition, and the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code, together with certain additions, insertions, deletions, and changes thereto, and making a determination of exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act.
And we're going to have Sophia Checa, our newly appointed acting planning manager for the city,
Yes.
give the report on this.
Congratulations, Sophia.
Thank you very much, y'all. Happy to be here today. I'm filling in for Stephanie Spieler, who's our building official, because she couldn't be here today. And then Lonnie Cassidy, I believe our senior plans examiner, is on Zoom to provide support as needed. Hopefully y'all caught everything that Anna Marie said. Every 3 years, the California Building Standards Commission reviews and revises the California Building Standards codes that exist of 13 parts, and we're currently in that cycle. So the 2022 CBSC becomes effective on January 1st of 2023. Essentially, what must happen is that jurisdictions must adopt the California Building Code by that date, and we can do that with local amendments. So what is presented before you is essentially what already exists in Title 11 of our municipal code and revisions from this new cycle. We kept the majority of it the same as what currently exists the code, but made minor modifications due to changes in policy at the local level. For example, the code allows for, I believe, 180 days for like revisions to happen. The way that we had it written in the code was 365, and our policy is to maintain 180 days. So we just, we wanted it to align with how our practices currently are in the building division. This is just the first reading. The next will be a public hearing on November 28th, and that ideally is when we will adopt the new standards. Any questions?
Yeah, I think you just answered my questions. I was going to ask if this is something that's done routinely, periodically, or if we found that we need more tools for enforcement or
No,
something
it's
like that.
done periodically, and we felt that what was existing in the code was really good, so which is why we maintained a lot of it.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
The state is so busy.
Yes. Making sure we do everything right.
Exactly.
All right, any questions? Is there, taking it out then to public comment? Is there, I don't have on, these are all 6. Okay, these are all item 6. So I don't have any speaker slips for this particular item. Is there anyone that's in-house right now wishing to speak on this particular item regarding the code section? Seeing none, bringing it back to Zoom. And I'm not seeing any hands raised at this point on Zoom. So just any final comments, or we'll just entertain a motion?
You will need to
We need
introduce,
to
waive the
waive-
first reading and introduce by title only.
I'll do that. I'll make a motion to waive the first reading and introduce by title only. Ordinance 22-0360 and schedule a public hearing and second reading for November 28, 2022 pursuant to Government Code Section 50022.3. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Urich.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome aboard again. All right, moving on to item number 6. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title?
Discussion and possible action to adopt a resolution modifying drought regulations and penalties.
Is there a staff report?
I think Jose Acosta is going to give you that report right now.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the public. My name is Jose Acosta. I'm the utility director for the city of Solvang. We brought back today the drought regulations and penalties for discussion as requested by the city council. Quick background on how we got here. At the August 24th meeting, the council adopted the resolution to implement stage 2 of the city's drought regulations. This August meeting was a revision from the first meeting, which was in July where we adopted it, but we made some modifications. One of those modifications was changing the the benchmark year from fiscal year 2019 to calendar year 2019. We made this modification so that way we can get a quote-unquote normal year without any influence from COVID. So we decided to use 2019 as a calendar year versus a fiscal year. On the staff report, I have some questions that were presented to me by council and by the public as well. So I'd like to address those questions one at a time, and we'll start with the first question. The first question is, what is the basis for the 20% reduction goal? Again, the 20% reduction goal primarily affects single-family residential. The 20% reduction goal was set by Executive Order N-722 by Governor Gavin Newsom earlier this year. This order sets a 20% restriction on water usage and is established, and it has been established in stage 2 of the city's drought ordinance as well. This has been in there since the ordinance was adopted a while back before I got here. Do we want to discuss each question one at a time, or do you want me to go through the whole staff report,
I
Mr.
think go through the staff report, yeah.
Perfect, okay. The second question that was presented to me was, how much water have we saved? And overall, the city has cut back water usage by 9% for the month of August and 7% for the month of September, compared to the same 2 months for calendar year 2019. As you can see with the graph, the chart below, since 2012, we've had increases in water usage each year with the exception of 2015. Each year, the water has increased very incrementally throughout the year consumption. Question number 3 is, why do we have a single penalty structure for every type of business? The penalty for businesses was set with city code. The code can be reviewed and modified by subsequent ordinance, and with respect to some issues, a resolution adopted by city council. A couple recommendations that we're presenting this evening, but are open to more recommendations and direction from council, are reduce the penalty rate within the section of the code, eliminate or place a hold on the penalty rates within this section of the code via urgency ordinance, set the benchmark limits accordingly to business's type. An example could be a small business with very low demand. You could have set that benchmark to 14 HCF, which is the same as single-family residential. If they have a single toilet, they probably will never reach that 14 HCF. If they are a gas station who has a toilet and has no lawn, they probably wouldn't reach that 14 HCF as well. So this could help with those businesses who are experiencing that hardship of trying to reduce by 20% because they only use 4 units a month. So we could consider making the modifications in such language. Question number 4, how many complaints have we had to date? As I say in here, we've had numerous inquiries into the ordinance requiring the reduction in water usage. I don't have a tabulation or a running total of how many, but we've had numerous questions and inquiries from the public, and also presented to me by City Council based off of public feedback that they've received as well. Number 5, are there any plans to update the drought penalties or goals? So that's what we're here tonight to discuss, if there are any updates or modifications to the ordinance that council wants to give direction to staff to pursue, to review, and bring back for modification to this ordinance. Changes to the ordinance will not take effect immediately, though, given that the time needed to change an ordinance through first and second reading. The 6th question that was presented to staff was, how will properties with an ADU be addressed? So a resident approached staff, asked the question, if I have a property and I build an ADU, do I have to abide by the 14 HCF, or do we get a certain allotment? Council could consider adjusting that allotment for an ADU based off of the size of the ADU, possibly, not necessarily doubling it or giving them extra water, but just based off the size of the ADU and any water fixtures in there. So that's also a possibility for an ADU. So those were the 6 primary questions that were presented to me and that I've addressed in the staff report. I have a couple more things to present in the staff report, and then I'll open it up for questions from City Council. So some of the penalties that have been assessed since this has taken effect, you could see in single-family residential, the Tier 1, which is 15 units, there have been 48 accounts who have been assessed the 1.5 times. Tier 2, 16 to 34, which still is 1.5 times the rate, there was 515 accounts. The Tier 2, there were 231 accounts. Out of a total of 1,740 single-family residential, this equates to about 45% of those accounts were assessed a penalty of some sort. Multifamily residential, you can see there were 43 accounts that were assessed a penalty out of the 71. That equates to about 61% of all multifamily residential accounts. For commercial and industrial, we have 125 accounts that were assessed a penalty. Out of 217, that equates to about 58%. For landscape irrigation, we have 54 accounts that were assessed a penalty out of 71. That equates to 76% of those accounts being assessed a penalty. And below, there's a chart and a graph here showing the current penalty structure and reduction targets and water consumption allotments. This has been presented before. I included in the staff report for further review and discussion as well. Attached to the staff report are a draft resolution that may be adopted if changes are requested of the Stage 2 drought ordinance. And then the last note on this staff report is council has also requested the opportunity to discuss some kind of moratorium or construction water connections on construction or water connections as an additional water conservation measure. Staff has researched the methods to accomplish this additional water savings, but staff recommends that any direction council wishes to give in connection with this approach be limited to water usage and not development in general. So in other words, new development or replacement development with no or minimal water usage should not be prohibited if council wishes to put restrictions on development with increased water usage. An example of limited or no water usage could be a requirement for new or replacement development to include such measures as xeriscape, hardscape, or drought-tolerant landscaping. So that concludes the staff report. I'll receive questions from council and the public and gladly answer those.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me. There's a couple of points in this. A lot of this I brought up. The gentleman that was with the construction company of the two residences, facilities being built, one's being built right now and one's shortly going to be built, had a couple of valid points. I didn't think about it as well as I should have, maybe is the best way to put this. Jose helped me a lot with this idea of just saying, let's cut back on the landscaping. 70% of the water usage in this town is landscaping. So if you have a building that doesn't have landscaping and it has one toilet, you can't reduce 20%. We know that. The construction idea, I didn't want to stop construction as much as let's not allow new construction, but the idea of just saying, let's do a xeriscape or hardscape or something like that to reduce the amount of water usage seems very reasonable to me. It's a good way to do things. I've been getting a lot of comments about the water usage and the penalties, and I'm not sure I understand all of them. I would like Jose to tell us about the one story that somebody called you up and said, how am I spending this much water? Where you did a minute by minute. We have these, we're paying a lot of money for these valves we have. And that's the majority of our water bill, actually. And we've got a water bill that hadn't changed in 6 years, so we ran out of money because we weren't getting enough money out of the water bill to pay for maintenance of those water lines. So we upped the water bill. But you told me about a case of a house where you did a hour by hour how much water they were using. Would you tell everybody about that one, please?
Yeah, so there have been a couple of current water audits where customers come in and request a 30-day report. We're only able to download 30 days on these current meters when you go out there and you hard download, because we don't have the capability of bringing it, sorry, I'm explaining it thoroughly. We don't have the capability of saving that data or retrieving that data in a central location. That is why second fiscal year coming up, I want to request the AMI system, which will allow us to bring the data to a central location, save it, allow customers to be able to see as far back as when this system's put into place and be able to provide that information hour for hour. There have been a couple 30-day reports that we've recently conducted where you could see how much water is used hour by hour. There was a current resident who 75% of their water usage was for landscape, and it's quite a bit of water. Another one was over 50% of the water was for landscape. So currently, a lot of the water is being used, 50 to 70% of that water is being used on outdoor irrigation. And that's proven during the winter months. And granted, we do have less tourism during the winter months, but we go from a demand of water consumption of 600,000 gallons a day to 1.8 million gallons a day during the summer when we're irrigating. So you can see we almost triple the amount of water we use come the summer months when irrigation is turned on.
And I hope everybody recognizes that what we just heard is that we're getting the capability, and with the new AMI, you called it?
Yes, sir. Automated meter infrastructure.
Oh, good. I knew there had to be a reason for
Yes,
that
yes.
acronym. You're going to be able to see how much water you're using on your cell phone.
That is correct. We'll be able to give the opportunity for the customer to see themselves what they're using.
Right. But right now, we can study the last 30 days and tell you when it is. And so one particular instance, at 5:30 every morning, they were using 125 gallons. You can't shower that long. So it was obviously landscaping going in. They didn't seem to be aware of this, apparently. So this is an issue that everybody needs to understand, is that we don't have enough water, and we can't afford to continue watering our landscape to the degree it's been done to date. This 2 or 3 times in the summer is just amazing. And so these penalties were put in place because when we did a voluntary, we didn't get the cutback that we needed. So we started putting penalties in, and now we're getting people's attention, and I think this is working. There are some inadequacies or inequalities in my mind about how it's being done, and we need to talk about that. But I want to thank you. I think this is great.
Real quick, I want to talk about the penalties as well. The penalties are put in place because state water obviously is running out. We're forecasted 0% of state water next year. Some of our wells experience problems. We do regular maintenance on them. We do monitor them. But as you're aware, a well cannot run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. So when we do lose a well or we run out of state water, we have to purchase our water through ID1. The current rate of purchasing that water is about $4,800 an acre foot. Now, the open market right now to purchase water on the state open market, prior to them not having any, a couple months ago, we were purchasing it between $800 to $1,200 an acre foot, and that was high. So to go to San Ynez ID1 and bring water from them, it's about $4,800 an acre foot. So we have to pay for that water at that amount.
And if I may, Jose, I don't think that was allotted for in the rate increase that we just passed.
That is correct. We've been purchasing minimal amounts these last few years. When I say minimal, it's probably maybe 40 to 50 acre feet, and that's only to get by when the winter, state water does their winter shutdown.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the staff report?
I have one. Jose, I mean, obviously you're familiar with how other cities, or I don't know if you are, actually how other cities, this just goes back to everything that comes out of Sacramento, but whether it be RENA, whether it be water, it's a blanket directive from the state that every city's got to comply with. So what are you finding out from other cities? How are other cities more draconian than us? Are they making incentives versus penalizing? Have we done any research into this yet?
Yes, there are varied options out there. Some cities are even more stricter than us. They're saying brown grass, no watering of lawn at all. And if you have green grass, they will penalize you for that. Other cities are just not implementing the fines. And so that we can go that route where there's no fines, or we can go where we eliminate landscapes. So you can go even harsher or less, but the 20% is throughout the state. Everywhere I research, it's 15 to 20% reduction in their stage 2 water contingency plans.
And to add to that, if I may, in LA, in northern part of LA, where they're having problems and people are refusing to save water, they're putting water restrictions on the line. And they're saying you can't have more than 14, I don't know what their number is that they're using, but they're limiting how much water the house can have, period. So then they have to decide whether they want to flush a toilet or water their lawn.
So they have these objects, they call them a silver bullet. You put them at the prior to the meter, and it minimizes your flow going through that meter. So those are options that other cities have undertaken as well that I'm aware of.
Okay. I have one more question.
Go ahead.
A gentleman in the audience, Keith Adler, had sent me this email about that device tracking home water uses. That's the same thing you're talking about, right?
No, so that's called the Flume. The Flume is it's a very great product, actually. It was put together by some students at Cal Poly. They have a contest every year, and they came up with this product that attaches to your meter, and it'll do the same thing as what the AMI does, but it just attaches to our
Wi-Fi
meter.
thing about
Yes.
on your phone, you can check your usage?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's a great product. The problem is it costs $200. Some cities will purchase those and give them to residents or provide a rebate program. Right now, our rebate money is tied into our landscape rebate program. If council wants to look for money or try to find money to put into a different type of rebate program, maybe offer other rebates to the city, that's an option as well. But that is a great product. We just don't have the option right now to give rebates for that, but it is out there for customers to purchase. When they purchase it, they would put it on their meter and they would connect to their home Wi-Fi, and they would be able to download that information, have it available.
I think we should look into that.
How do they attach their meter? They don't come to the city to do it?
No, sir.
It's on their side of the meter.
Yes, and I cannot speak if these would work on our meters, because our meters are mag meters, and the ones I've seen those work on are compound meters that have a magnetic device in them. So they may. I'm not even sure if they'll work on our meters. I would have to look into that.
Thank you.
We did use them in Los Osos as an incentive, and when I was the utility manager up in Los Osos, we did offer a rebate program up there for those products. But
Any other questions?
Yeah, just DWP is charging, they're discounting it to $24. You can go on the DWP website for $24. You can see your minute-by-minute water usage.
I have a question. Do we have data on which kinds of accounts use the most water? I mean, no, we know that irrigation, that's where most of the water goes for. But is there data that says whether single family are uses the most, or commercial accounts use the most, multifamily, so on?
we do have data. I don't have it with me this evening to present, but we do have that data available to us. I don't have those figures in front of me. I apologize.
One of the comments I find concerning is how much percentage people are in penalties. And I don't think any of us, when we put these in play, figured, it might be 5 or 10, maybe a dozen, but to have almost 50% of your single-family residents be in a penalty phase, I'm just curious, I know where I'm at, I try to keep it under that 14 HCF, but how many of the Tier 2 and Tier 3 are ones with a 3/4 meter?
The size of the meter is not
doesn't
relevant
matter.
to these penalties.
And how many of those, I know I was reading one of the comments that I think it was Mr. Schaefer that it's given to everyone here regarding that, and how many of those are out on the ranch, Alisal Ranch? Do you
That's
know?
a great question. I'm not sure.
We don't know. Because I know a lot of that out there, they're surrounded by high fire area.
Yes.
And they need to be able to irrigate somewhat their trees and the canopies that they produce, the bushes to create some kind of green space out there. I don't know. I'm just really concerned with the amount and the percentage. I mean, almost every one of these is almost 50% of the users are in a penalty phase, and I don't think that's right. We need to do something different.
Agreed.
We can once more tell everybody that we do have rebates for people to get rid of their grass and put in native plants. Right?
Yes, that is available, and I believe we still have money in there. We actually entered into an agreement with the county as well, where they got a state grant, where we are realizing a doubling of our efforts into that as well for the next 2 years. That won't take effect till next fiscal year because the money won't be available to the end of this fiscal year.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I guess the other thing that's concerning, not only is it the penalties that are a concern, but that we're still only getting 9% and 7% reduction. 50% Yeah. And that, it's not looking good.
No, and it's hard because not one plan doesn't fit every person or every lot out here at the city. We have varying lot sizes, varying degrees of needed shrubbery, and some that just don't have any, and they're doing their part by putting in xeriscape or low drought tolerant plants.
Is there any other questions at this time?
Not questions.
Or a
When
comment?
we get to comments, we'll get there after the public speaks.
After the public speakers. You guys ready to go to public? All right. I have some speaker slips here. And first up, Denise Elamine. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Denise Elamine, and I am a Solvang resident who has been paying higher rates and penalties, and I was gone away for a month the month of August to September. And when I arrived back, I received my bill, and my bill increased when I was gone. And I called to the water department and spoke to Jose, and I questioned how could my water bill go up, and I didn't have a squatter. I checked, and no one had been in my house, and my irrigation is permanent, and the gardener can't get in unless he had the key. So I was told that you can pull, you must have a leak. That's your standard answer. And if you want us to pull any reports, it's $50 to discourage poor people or people of me or whoever to inquire about their bills. I'm having a problem with the city and how you treat the average poor person with their questions about these water rates, water restrictions, and water penalties. We're all not wealthy. We all don't have wealthy friends and business people who can give us some incentives and some kickbacks. Some of us have to just live off our pensions, and some of us can't afford to pay a penalty. We either pay to feed our kids or we pay the penalty. So I am here, and it looks like I'll be here at every meeting until I die. Who knows when that'll be? But I am going to try to get a task force together of regular citizens of Solvang that we can get together. If anybody wants to join me, please see me, call me, so that we can go over the numbers and we can present it to the current city council and whomever they appoint, which that's what they'll do, a friend, and that we can complain together. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Next up, Stacy Audie.
Greetings, Council. Nice to see you, Brad. So Stacy Audie, Wildling Museum. So I'm representing our museum here in Solvang. And I did come a few weeks ago and also made some points, and I appreciate being heard then. And just to reiterate, since we're making decisions maybe tonight or very soon, for the Wildling, we turned off our irrigation pre-2019. So we're not doing that. We have bathrooms, which we're mandated to have and need to have for the public and for the staff, one of which is a waterless men's urinal, so we're doing good on that. The toilets we have really are smaller water usage than your average tank. We have a sink. I mean, we're just about as minimal as we really could be as a business, so to see penalties coming our way, and it's really I'm not even going to quarrel with the doubling of the rate. I mean, everybody knows you guys have to do something, and it's only going to get worse the next year. But the $1,000 monthly penalty is very, very hurtful. We're a small nonprofit. We do have a tenant. Mike Lemus is also here to represent his business, and he has one bathroom. He did put in the dog wash tubs, and I'll let him talk about that. And I believe he's right that they actually may help the community in terms of how they're being used. So I just plead for the $1,000 penalty to be minimized, waived, something, because that just seems like it's the most harmful thing to a small business like ours that's just struggling. And, you know, we're a green certified business. We're out there trying to do right in the community by being green. Yeah, there's just something kind of wrong with the fit, certainly for our business and probably others as well. And on a broader note, it has to seem that the irrigation for landscaping is the most fair, most equitably, most impactful thing that you guys could really, really lean on. I mean, who cares if we go to succulents? Long live succulents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Mike Lemos, next up.
Howdy. I am, well, first of all, Honorable Mayor, thank you. And members of the council, I appreciate you listening to me. I'm Mike Lemus, excuse me, been in business for 5 decades on the Central Coast. We opened up here in Solvang in November of, I believe it was October of '99. So we've been here 21 years. And, you know, I feel like we have contributed to the community through sponsorships and participation. We partner well with the Humane Society. We do a lot of things right. like I said, we've served Solvang with our unique style and brand of service for 21 years, and we're pretty proud of that. With just what we do. It's not breaking news, and I know that. When COVID hit Solvang, we have 14 locations. This location here was the worst of any of our stores, and we got hit hard. And like I said, it's not breaking news, and every business venue in Solvang was feeling the same hurt. However, you know, we considered closing our doors after the first 7-8 months. But I don't give up real easy. Let me think here. And we ended up in November of 21. We thought, well, and I believe that, you know, the best defense is a good offense. So we did a facelift on the store, painted it, redid the floors, put new fixtures, and we put in 2 self-service dog washers. We have them in 10 of our other locations, and they're a community project. If you have a dog and you have it groomed, if you're on their list, you within 30 days you can get in. If you're trying to find a new groomer today, I guarantee you won't find one for 90 to 120 days. This is a great resource for people that are grooming their own dog. When you wash your dog in your home, using a bath, and Jose, you can probably speak this better than I, but if your water coming out of your bathtub, that is 4 to 8 gallons a minute. And if you're washing your dog and it takes you 10 minutes, that's 50, 60 gallons of water. We'll wash several canines with that same amount of water, and there's no waste. We have a trigger handle so that there's restrictions on the valves and the trigger handle, so when they're not moistening the dog or rinsing it, there's no water being dispersed. So, and if you're washing the dog out in the lawn, that is 12 to 17 gallons a minute coming out of that hose, out of a 3/4 inch hose. So there again, you just extrapolate that number out, and it all kind of makes sense. So I guess I'm here to ask for some grace. From the consumption paragraph, I understand that. I understand everything costs more money. The $1,000 would take us out of the market, and that we just cannot live, and we couldn't continue with that. It would reduce customer traffic and potentially lead to our 2+ decade store closing, and I really don't want that. Something we don't want as a company. Our loyal Solvang customers, I sure don't want it. The city of Solvang, I wouldn't think would want it to see our departure. So I'm just asking to do what you can for us for the penalty phase. This thing is what we're having a problem with. And to Stacy's point, and listen to you earlier, 70% of your landscaping is the issue, and I guess that red light means I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening.
Yeah. Keith Adler.
Hello, everybody. I am Keith Adler. I'm here today to talk about our water issues, not simply the penalties in place regarding excess use. Our water problems go back to a time before this current council, when the city decided to be part of the state water system. As such, I would suggest that we figure out how to undo that arrangement. Obviously, this means looking for new water sources of water, and my hope is that this can be accomplished. Regarding the penalties assessed to users over 14 HCF per month, why can't we bank our water usage for the year, the way many of us already do with our electrical and gas bills? There is a level up each year, and either one owes the utility more money or the utility owes one a credit. Seems simple enough to me. I used 11 HCF 2 billing periods ago. I used 14 in the last one. If I use 15 in the next one, I'm going to be penalized, but clearly my average usage is just fine. Furthermore, can't there be a credit involved or a penalty forgiven for homes and businesses that already have low flush toilets, low volume faucets and showers, fixtures, as well as drought tolerant landscaping? Yes, this means an inspection needs to take place or some other means of proof, but we are a small community and this shouldn't be impossible to achieve. Also, several cities, including Los Angeles, recently offered rebates for purchasing a flume water meter. That's the one that Robert was talking about, for $200. If you're already doing landscaping rebates, I don't know why this can't be part of that program. Finally, I'd like to talk about the water bill itself. We are being billed for sewer use, which I understand, and water, of course, but then there's a meter charge. Why is it that the meter charge never ends? I'm told that contractors charge $800 to $1,200 to install a new water meter. If this is the case, shouldn't homeowners be able to stop that charge on their bills once the meter and installation are paid for? At current rates, homeowners are paying at least $4,500 every 5 years just for their meters. So, or is this simply a way for you guys to make extra money? I don't really know. I have argued in a previous council meeting that I feel the current 14 HCF level for all single-family homes is arbitrary and ridiculous, so I feel that this is already in the record. But in conclusion, I would simply state that I feel that our entire water system of billing, allocating, and penalizing needs to be looked over and revised. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Keith. And last, I have Dennis Beebe.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for your service to the community. I am Dennis Beebe from Solvang. I will like to summarize a memo which I'll give to the clerk so you don't have to take notes. But I propose something other than forgiveness, which it seems like most people are asking for here. I tried to read the basis for most of the charges being put on the water users, and that's the HDR study, which came up with proposed rates, proposed tiers, rates for the sewer charge, the meter charge, and the water consumption charge. Pretty formidable. I got through the executive summary. So you got a number of reports, regulations, ordinances, and it's a tough road to really manage. But I agree that water conservation is the most important, most immediate, most effective measure available now and must be conducted. But the city has done a very poor job of communicating the associated restrictions and penalties associated with not conserving. As new and later amended drought resolutions from this council have been enacted, the residents are now only being impacted. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, I think, tonight. Our last few water bills included very poorly constructed inserts to try to explain what was going on. And Jose, I'm probably the biggest complainer. I sent Jose and the previous city manager a list of questions and complaints. I even offered Jose my technical editing expertise should he dare to send out a third insert before he sends it out, that is. But I'd like to focus on one water class user, and that's the single family residents. What you've chosen to do, and by the way, I agree with the water rates and everything in here. They didn't get into the penalty piece. That was done by staff, I guess. But they've chosen an average usage for all single-family residences. I own two of them. One is about 1,000 square foot condo, and one is a 5-bedroom house. They're both single-family residences, and they both have the same maximum amount of water that they can use each month before penalties kick in, 14. And you might ask yourself, where does 14 come from? It comes from here. Calendar year 20, the contractor, HDR, came up with an average number consumption per month of 17.8 HCF. No, in their case, it was CCF. And you took 20% off that, make 14. So it's applied to every single family residence. I suggest, and I'll be out of here just a minute, Mayor. I suggest that you consider subclasses within that class. You know, large houses versus condos. There's a spectrum of single-family residences. They shouldn't all be trying to keep below 14 HCF. Why don't you prorate it within that class, make subclasses based upon number of toilets or square footage or number of bedrooms? I don't know. You can figure it out. But seems to me, and by the way, I only use 1 to 2 HCF in the condo, and I can't make the 14 HCF, even though I've gone to all these drought-tolerant steps that most people do. I won't get into the toilets in detail, but I've gone to abandoning the lawns, cutting down my water, birch trees, eliminating my recirculating water feature, washers, dryers, you know, all the stuff. And that was done before you set the benchmark of either 2019 or 2020. It was all done before then. So, you know, I'm stuck. So that's what I suggest. You look at this particular category and try to come up with striations of water usage based upon the size or the usage. And I personally like to measure myself against what I did the previous benchmark month, not this fictitious average that somebody come up with for all this category. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dennis. I don't have any other speaker slips at this time, but is there anyone else wishing to speak? Ms. Arona?
Thank you. Thank you for the time. And I think all of you should have gotten an email with my written statement in advance. This is not an easy problem. Water rates, water conservation, water penalties. I think we have a lot of work to do. My comments are going to be related to specifically the drought regulation water penalty rates and ensure the voice and concern and the distress from many residents that I've spoken with along my way to candidacy for council to help solve this problem. Just want to make sure they're heard and they're considered. First, the penalties that were invoked at the time of the water rate increases compounded really a current challenging financial impact in a currently challenging financial crisis for many, specifically the water consumers in the city. And while it's recognized that the state has obligated us to conserve under this drought regulation declaration, the targets, as you've heard, they're extremely difficult to hit, and they're extremely difficult to hit in a short window of time. What I'm hearing from most is that the avoidance of these cost increases and the consequential penalties is just extremely difficult, and so many people have been stung in a very short window of time to comply. The drought compliance penalties, they're different for businesses than they are for residents. And if the city's serious about rolling back any of the penalties for businesses, we should be equally serious about rolling them back for the residents. The penalties for residents specifically are tied to consumption volume, which is a variable based on the CCFs over a conservation target. So they're not a one-time trigger. They are an event that's calculated as a function of the volume consumed. If your targets are missed as a business, it's a one-time, predictable, fixed amount. Under Prop 218, the penalty rates on any water service or any service related to your property must be directly correlated to the cost of providing the service. Direct relationship. It's not clear that your 1.5 and 2x multipliers on the new rates have any direct connection to the cost to serve by the city. These fees directly imply the cost to deliver 20 CCFs is more expensive than the cost to deliver 1 CCF and 2 times more expensive of the cost to deliver 83 CCFs. And the penalties will not likely, these penalties for the residents as a function of consumption will not likely survive a greater challenge through Prop 18, where water rates must show a transparent and detailed relationship to increasing costs and tier by tier increasing costs for this same water. If since we've delivered different penalty structures for the businesses versus residents, the city has to really defend why there are different calculation methods used for those penalties. So we're asking simply for the city to take more time, reassess and realign these conservation targets, as you heard. They don't consider things like lot size or the things where new homeowners have been grandfathered into existing landscaping and they need to accommodate or keep their property values maintained as a result. And the function of hitting those targets is actually pretty painful for businesses and residents alike. Thank you for putting this on the agenda at an accelerated rate. I think it's an urgent problem for us to solve together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item that's in here? If not, I'll take it out to Zoom, and I know, I can't see, is that, oh. Susan Bott, is that the name? I think I see?
Yes. Yes, it is. Thank you.
There we go.
I'm Susan Bott, and I recently spoke before the Planning Commission regarding a possible building moratorium for Solvang necessitated by the continuing drought. Evidenced by the rather drastic measures the city of Solvang has taken with water rates and penalties, it's obvious that we do not have sufficient water for our current needs, let alone any new development which would demand even more water. This is not just a matter of opinion on my part, but it is also stated as a city regulation based on Solvang's municipal code under section 11-4-1, city policies. Paragraph C is explicit, stating, quote, prior to issuance of a land use permit, the city shall make the finding based on information provided by environmental documents, staff analysis, and the applicant that adequate public or private services and resources, i.e. water, sewer, roads, etc., are available to serve the proposed development, unquote. Also, addressing the staff report, trying to limit the moratorium to only developments which necessarily increase water usage opens up the process to needless arguments and bargaining to mitigate increased water usage, i.e. what constitutes xeriscape, hardscape, or water-tolerant landscaping. How much can you water these categories without violating the increased water usage stipulation? Please seriously consider instituting a moratorium on new development as long as we are so short of water. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Susan. I don't see any other hands up there. All right, bring it back for final comments. Any direction?
Oh, it's still up.
That was Susan. Oh. Oh.
What's SB?
Is there someone identified as SB? I'm not sure if that.
It's another Susan Bellany.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Go
No
right
problem.
ahead.
I'm the anonymous person here. I'm just going to read the email, if that's okay, that I sent you
Okay.
about a success story in Healdsburg last year. Here's the story. They did not mention penalties at all. And in fact, another city, Coalinga, flat out said their penalties did not work. Coalinga is in national news right now because they say they'll run out of water this November because they cannot afford to buy water. And there were two numbers that were in two different articles, ranging from 1,800 to 2,500 per acre foot. And they said those numbers used to be 130 to 190 per acre foot. And their other sources of water are gone. So that's Coalinga. In Healdsburg, they were successful by cutting the town's water use by over 40% when the city banned outdoor water irrigation. But at first they offered trucked water for free, and then they sold the water at $45 for 500 gallons and delivered it to plastic cisterns at home so residents could water trees. Also, some people used the Flume app that already got discussed, so I'm glad we're all learning about that. And then Healdsburg officials also felt the more information you provide, this is a quote, to customers, the more public awareness you create, the better customers respond to different asks that the utilities have. I agree with Dennis Beebe. This is just the beginning for your further communications with the residents as they find out what this is all about. I think that our residents need a lot more useful and detailed information on how to save water. I hope the city manager will use the newsletter that is sent out to list some of these things. We could use, for example, a lot of information about gray water systems. We could start recycling our own water while we're waiting for the city to get recycled water. And I'd sent you an article about cities with nearby farms offering to help farmers by drip irrigation instead of wasting water to evaporation when they use overhead sprinklers at high noon in the wind. I just can't stand it. It drives me crazy. I'm sorry, but pet peeve. So the USGS says that you can lose almost 35% of up to 35% of water through evaporation that way. So the idea was, could you exchange what they would lose to evaporation and truck it? How about some to Sunnyfields Park? Maybe there's a farm next to it, or Hans Christian Andersen. You could truck water that was saved instead of going to evaporation, get it out of the well at the farmers next door. Lastly, how are we going to avoid becoming like Coalinga or Portersville's another one, and many small cities and towns whose wells have run dry? That's looking to the extreme future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. All right. I think we got all the hands now. Is there any final comments or suggestions?
Yeah, I did have a comment just because this keeps coming up, and I don't think we all understand that. So when we see meter charge, and that kind of infers that the meter charge, this is the charge that we get for the actual physical meter and the installation and whatever, but that's not quite what it is. The meter charge is the cost to provide the service to the account. Is that right?
The meter charge is a cost for that meter because it varies based on the size of the meter.
Okay,
it's your fixed fee in this fee schedule. So you have a variable fee, which is your water usage. The fixed fee or meter charge is your base fee that comes with each account based on the size of the meter.
Okay, so
that to have that capacity delivered to you, the system has to have so much capacity, and that's why you're paying into that every
And call it whatever you want to call it.
yeah, because it's just the way that we call it. It sounds, oh well, then I just pay for my meter straight up, and then I don't have to pay a meter charge.
Yeah, better rate would just be a fixed charge. That's what it is.
It's like your cell phone. You pay for the basic rate, and then you pay for the data. Unless you get an all-in-one plan thing. Yeah, I know. But that's a different situation entirely. Couple things then. The Healdsburg story, that's recycled water they were selling. We don't have recycled water yet. We're trying to get there.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. It's going to be a couple years, though, before we got recycled water.
Same with the two new wells, that one's a year and a half and one's 2.5 years away.
The same way with wells. We're trying to get new wells. So there's a lot. We're doing a lot trying to solve the problem, but we can't, not immediately. So what we need to do then is ask the citizens to cut back on their water usage. Okay, I think we all understand that. I would like to know if this flume thing works on our meters. You said you're not sure if it does. I'd like to know if we can verify that it does or doesn't.
I'll look into that.
I would appreciate it.
Yes.
I think everybody else would too. Thank you. I would like to suggest that we change the commercial structure for penalties. There are a lot of businesses in town that cannot reduce their water usage 20%. And I think we need to set up a separate category for them from the other businesses that can. And that's a library, a jewelry store, a knife shop, a shoe store, a retail, these are people, or a museum, got one toilet. How are you going to reduce it 20%? Send your employees across the street, use public restrooms. That won't help you save water, but it'll cut back 20%. So I would like to recommend somehow that we get that done. The rest of this, there needs to be some discussions on it, but I think we're going to need to identify how some people are using their water when they're in Tier 3. The water penalties are associated with the water rate, not the meter rate. So if you've got a 20 HCF water bill and $120 or so is the meter, that's $80 worth of water. If you get a 50% penalty, you're going to pay an extra $40 a month. Hate to tell you, but there's a lot of people here who don't care. So that becomes the penalty there for the water, for the residential, doesn't seem to be draconian at all. It's just there to let you know you're using too much water and we'd like you to slow it down. So I think we need to adjust things a little bit, and maybe to Mr. Beebe's comments is even on the houses. But I think aren't condos what do we call them, multifamily residential?
Multifamily.
They've got their own separate meter, Mark, and, they get the bill.
Condos do have their own meter. Some apartment complexes are multifamily, mobile home park.
So the apartments are,
Yes.
I got you.
If I could ask, Rancho San Diaz Mobile Estates is on 1 meter, correct? For 164 units?
Yes, sir.
1 meter.
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When you add an ADU,
Because Fred Cobalt died.
does that jump you into multifamily on the same lot?
Nope, it's still considered single family.
So we need to adjust based on ADUs as well.
And we can't do that. But what we would need to do is probably do an audit to make sure that it's a legal ADU, that it's gone through the planning process, the building process, and then make those modifications on how we apply the rates to them.
Okay.
May I suggest, while all of this is being thought, that the penalties get stayed to some degree? Because it just seems,
All of them?
I don't know, I mean, I'm saying, yeah, that's me, but
I agree
it
with
just
that.
seems that with close to 50% in every single one of these categories, that we're not meeting it, we need to do something different than what we're doing. And obviously, we're not helping our residents.
But we're saving only 9% of the water.
I agree. So we need to figure out other ways maybe that we can, let people know again more about the irrigation buy program, get rid of your irrigation and lawn and all that stuff, and the rebates that are available that are out there. But it just doesn't seem fair. As Mr. Beebe said, he's got 2 residents. They're basically getting the exact same 14 HCF. And, one is 5 bedrooms, probably 3 baths. Not that you're using all the toilets at the same time, but, trying to conserve on how many times you flush, I know I do. And, you hate to say it, but, there needs to be something done a little bit different. And I think while we're in that process of thinking about what we're going to do, I don't think we need to be charging anybody $1,000 or more. That's the minimum or more at this time. Just for the Wildling and for Mr. Lemos, a 21-year business owner, the stress that you've got going with your businesses, it just doesn't seem right. And that's my thought. My suggestion is just putting that out there. At least while we're still thinking, I'm not saying it's going to go away eventually, but
What do you need, a 1 month?
maybe give it, or another 2. We only have
I would
had
say
2
3.
months, maybe just through the end of the year.
We're going to be.
We're gonna be
about rain
utilizing-
season, as it comes up. Anyway, yeah.
We're going to be utilizing
rain.
less,
Coming
I
into
would
the
say.
winter season
I
with less
don't know
irrigation
about
use.
that.
So.
I have comments. Somebody was talking about the state water debacle that we got into, if we can renegotiate that's almost over, if I'm not mistaken. Because it was 1993 that we bought state water, we had the March Miracle, the lake filled up, we tried to get out of it, then we lost, and we, against the advice of council, we appealed, and so that was to the tune of about, what, $6 million?
I don't think it was that high, but it was multi-million.
And the city we're almost done paying for that, correct?
We're almost done paying for the fixed charges. I think the bonds go out to, I want to say 2038.
Yeah.
Or 32. It's in the early to mid 2030s.
So there's no way to renegotiate that, to answer
No,
the question.
and that, I mean, I hate to use that analogy, but that's water under the bridge at this point. To go back and try to renegotiate the state water project. And remember, we're not a direct state water project contractor. We contract with ID1. They're the state water contractor. So they've made commitments based on Solvang's commitment to ID1. And so it would require a multi-level type of renegotiation if the city were going to do that. And I think that would be nearly impossible to get accomplished.
And my other comment would be, I'm all for wiping out those penalties. And I've used several examples of certain businesses that 2 or 3 years ago did the reductions, did everything they could. How do you draw blood from a turnip? So that's a step in the right direction. I would suggest incentives, not penalties. And a lot of this all goes back to this. The state keeps telling you, you got to do this, you got to do this. And the city council's forced to hand, and then people get upset, and I totally get it. I'd rather see a moratorium on watering lawns. I mean, Goleta tried to do a moratorium, and they got sued for it because they weren't going to meet their arena numbers, and they just tossed their arena numbers out the window. So everything is a balancing act with Sacramento. I love Keith's idea. I don't think we have the infrastructure to bank water usage or even to document that. That's a can of worms, but Keith makes a very good point about that. And there must be a way that we could renegotiate with ID1. We tried this once. I think they wanted a 2-for-1 repay or something like that. I mean, we're all in this together. If we can't renegotiate this with ID1, we're going to be in trouble. And long term, we've got to silt the 2 reservoirs above Kachuma. They've never been silted, and that water, that soil is worth a fortune. So I don't know. I mean, how much more creative can we get? But the penalties, I'm not in favor of, and I think we should rescind them.
This, this is a pretty big issue, but how many people do we have here?
Yeah.
And I've gotten maybe 5 emails, 6 emails, if that, from how many people we have. I think that education, has a part here. And I used to have a really nice green lawn when I bought my house, and it's brown now. And that's the way it is. But there's other people that still have green lawns. And I'm not so sure if knocking on the door from the city and saying, we're really trying to hold things down, and is there anything you can do to reduce your usage, and leave it at that. An embarrassment or maybe an acknowledgement may have more impact than a fee. I can pay my fee. I mean, I'm in a position where I can do that, and a lot of people are. A lot of people aren't. But I think it's not enough. I don't think enough people in the city understand what's going on. They're not watching us. They're probably not reading it. Again, how many people do we have here? And this is a big issue, that if there's some way perhaps the water department could find a way to just go and knock on a door and saying, I don't know if you're aware we're having some real water issues. We'd appreciate everybody trying to conserve something. And you may get more with the carrot than you do with a stick.
I would, though, like to not do a construction moratorium, but I very much like the suggestion that we do for new construction, xeriscape, hardscape, or drought-tolerant landscape as a requirement, and not allow heavy landscaping. I would like to make that part of new construction before we do a can and will statement.
Commercial?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Commercial development, construction.
Okay.
So where are we, Mr. Mayor? We need a motion.
We need a motion.
If I can just jump in here, some of the things that the council has recommended can be done with a resolution. We've presented that's one of the options. Some of the other things that you've talked about will require an amendment to the ordinance. We could look at doing an urgency ordinance at the next meeting that would go into effect immediately. The amendments to the type of development standards, that's something a little more complex because we don't have that in the code at this point. We could certainly put that together for the council on that. But as far as putting a suspension of the penalties for a period of time, I think that's something council could give by resolution. We'll go ahead and implement that. Longer term, the council may want to look at the penalty structure in the code as a whole and determine whether or not it wants to just put flat amounts, if it wants to look at other approaches to the penalties. One of the speakers talked about some concerns about Prop 218. The law is constantly evolving in this area with respect to the cost of water service and other property-related services. And so that may be something staff can take a look into to provide longer-term relief into this issue.
Would that suggest we need a motion to ask staff to come up with some suggestions and we address it in the next council meeting?
Do something tonight.
Well, the suspension of the penalties is something you could do tonight. If you want to do the development standards, that's something we'd need to spin up pretty quickly, make a determination of whether or not there's any CEQA involvement in that. I suspect that we could probably deal with that because those standards would be applied to individual projects that would have to go through CEQA review. But I'm uncomfortable just imposing those kind of by resolution and by fiat at this point because they may conflict with other development standards that we have in the code. It would be better to do it through an ordinance doing that with the urgency. But I'm comfortable moving forward with putting a suspension for a period of time by resolution on the penalties so that we can provide immediate relief until pending the other types of things that we can bring forward.
I would make that motion.
Before we go on with that motion, though, one more question, if I may, Mr. Attorney.
ahead.
If we suspend the penalties, does that retroactive, current, future, what are we suspending?
I think from a billing standpoint, doing it retroactively may be significantly difficult.
That would be a problem.
So I'd defer to Mr. Vidra if he's got any thoughts on that one.
I mean, I just think that's going to be much more problematic to try to go back. But you definitely could implement it now and say it's for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever you want to do. Give staff time to come up with some other things to bring back to you.
But how many individuals or groups have paid their fines already?
You have
That's
that
that
list,
percentages, you saw the numbers.
Those are all,
Because there's a nice big can of worms we're opening up here.
well, you'd be ceasing them for everyone, right? So uniformly,
all right.
you'd say no. It's not just residents.
Let's just
it's
not
just
make it
business.
retroactive
You're going
too
to wait.
much.
You're going to put a
Gotcha.
halt on them for 1, 2, 3 months, whatever you want us to do, and then we can work on bringing you back some other options in the future.
Thank you.
And I'd like one of those options to be some kind of education program.
And a notice in the utility billing that's written better than the one that was done to explain this in the first place?
I have not seen that one.
Oh,
but
it's
I
terrible.
could take a look at it.
We'll take you.
We'll take your word for it.
Yeah. I will say I would like to see whatever else we come up with that it considers the amount of usage overall. I think if there's an account that is already at a very low use, it's reasonable to, not be subject to fines if they can cut up more. And I do want to bring up that if we go for suspending the fines while we figure out a better way to do this, that doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all and we can go back to business as usual. This is a time for all of us to figure out how we can manage our resources better. It doesn't mean that you can bring your lawn back. I think there's definitely some consideration that needs to be given to either HOAs or, property associations that require to keep a certain amount of green when we don't have a certainty on water availability for the future of the city for basic needs. That's just in Congress. So perhaps we need to reach out not to just individual accounts, but either HOAs or whatever property management companies that have these requirements, because they have, they should be on board with us as a community to better manage our water usage.
I think we're back to your motion.
Whatever that motion was. No, I'm serious. However you phrase that,
Well, I think.
because I'd like to retroactive now
Right.
through to the end of the year while rates are being reviewed by staff.
Okay, so what I would suggest is you give direction to staff to abate the imposition of the penalties through the end of the year. Give staff direction to put together an urgency ordinance that would address the development standards that could be imposed on commercial projects to prohibit the installation of turf and require the installation of zero-scape or low impact water development. Those are certain things that you can do by ordinance. And then any other direction the council may have for a longer term fixed to the rates, the penalty rates in the ordinance. If you want us to start that process, that's not something that would go into the urgency. That would be something a little bit longer term. So those would be the three things that you'd be doing. Direct staff to abate the penalties through the end of the year. Give staff direction to create an urgency ordinance for the next meeting to impose the development standards, and give staff direction moving forward to take a harder look at the penalty structure under the existing ordinance.
If we can utilize those words.
Yeah, what he said.
That's my motion.
My motion, yeah, what he
That is my
said.
motion. Can I have a second on that?
I'll second
I'm sure
that.
the city clerk got all of it.
We can review that tape a few times. So, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all your comments out there, too.
Oh, now we get to the fun stuff.
Moving on to item number 7.
Discussion and possible action to introduce for first reading ordinance number 220361, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, revising Title I, Chapter 11, Conflict of Interest Code, biannual review of City of Solvang Conflict of Interest Code.
Is there a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before you is just a slight revision to the city's conflict of interest code. Every 2 years, the FPPC requires the city to review its conflict of interest code to see if there's any changes that are necessary, either through the creation of new positions, new commission members, or other changes that are requested by the city council. So we did receive the notice from the FPPC to go ahead and do this. We took a look and looked at the ordinance that's in place under Title I, Chapter 11, to see if there were any positions that needed to be added. There's a couple in there that we thought would be appropriate to go ahead and add. There is no legal requirement that they be added, but there's a couple that were not in there before, such as the Tourism Advisory Committee, Design Review Committee is already in there, but the Planning Manager and Marketing and Events Manager were not in there. Utilities Director was not in there because those are newly created positions. So what we've recommended is that the designated positions that would be required to file the Form 700 locally be added as part of the city's conflict of interest code. And since the city's conflict of interest code is imposed by ordinance, it would require first and second reading of the ordinance to add those. It's fairly straightforward, I think, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the process itself.
You need a motion?
We'd need public comment first, and then we'd need questions from council. But I appreciate the efficiency.
I have a couple questions, please. So first off, you've got in the designated positions, number 6 is the marketing and events manager. What we ended up with, in spite of the fact that that's what the council had originally approved, is a marketing manager. It's not marketing and events. Now, I would, at some point in time, like to have an events manager. I don't know if that's going to be a separate position. We've got position questions in here that I'm not sure how that's going to handle.
And I don't recall what the name, if the name of the position was marketing and events manager, how that went to council without going back and looking. I thought it was both, but I could certainly be mistaken on that.
It was.
Okay. So we may be in a position where the incumbent of the position is not undertaking that function, but that's not something that we would be addressing in the conflict of interest code. That would be something that we would either handle administratively or a change to the position description to remove those duties and change the title. That may necessitate a change in the conflict of interest code in 2 years, but right now the title of the position is marketing and events manager, and that's why it's in there.
And I had gotten the question, I believe I had asked you about it, why planning commissioners weren't here. Apparently they are under some other ruling.
Correct. They're what they call direct 87-200 filers. So the
I always called them that.
Yeah, well, Government Code Section 87-200 has specifically designated positions. Among those are city council members, city attorney, and planning commissioners. So they're already handled, and they have to do it by state law. We don't impose that locally.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
No.
Nope. Are the, on page 44, the other ones that were added in the designated positions, Parks and Rec Director, Public Works Director, Design Review Committee members, and TAC members? All of those are part of that same 87-200?
No, the 87-200 is a state level requirement. So we don't have to include the people who are under 87-200 in our own code. The ones that are in our own code are set forth in the ordinance here.
Okay.
So that's why you don't see city council members, you don't see the city attorney, you don't see the city manager.
Right.
Those are covered by state law. I have to file my own Form 700 independent of what the conflict of interest code at Solvang says. I'm required to by state law.
Yeah.
Because these are being added and those positions already exist, are they going to have to, we're going to have to go back and ask them now to fill out the appropriate forms?
Correct.
To stay on those, like the TAC and everything else?
Correct.
That's going to be interesting. Thank you.
And the city clerk informs me they already do.
I have a question. How do you enforce this? Are people supposed to say, oh, I can't vote on this, I can't participate in this discussion because of this? Or do we have a conflict of interest police that is going to point out when there's unethical decisions being made?
Yes to both. There is a prohibition under state law and under the city's code that if you have material financial interest, you're not supposed to make or participate in the making of the decision on that. So the example that I've given in the past is I had stock in Verizon Corporation at one point, and Verizon wanted to build a cell phone tower in Solvang. I said, I'm not comfortable, even though I don't own much Verizon stock, I'm not comfortable doing that. So I handed it to my partner so that he could review that. So I didn't make her participate in that decision because it could have a material financial interest, probably not, but I didn't want to run that risk. So it's the same kind of thing for people on the TAC. If they're making recommendations to the city council that would benefit them personally, they should not be doing that. They should be stepping down from that decision. Same thing with city staff that are designated in the conflict of interest code. If they have reason to believe that by making a recommendation, for example, they're recommending their brother's business and their brother is going to rebate them some money, that's not appropriate. They shouldn't be doing that kind of thing. So there is a provision in there that disqualifies or asks them not to make or participate in those decisions when they have that conflict of interest.
Okay, but who points the fingers when they do?
Locally, for the conflict of interest code, it's going to be the city administration. It could also be a taxpayer group that files a lawsuit to prevent it. With the 87-200 filers, it's the FPPC that does it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Nope. Take it out for public comment at this time. Is there any public comment on this? Go ahead.
My name is Denise Elamine, and I would just like to apply for the Conflict of Interest Force. I'll be more than happy to watch you guys and report you guys to the appropriate place. So if you vote me in, I'm ready to go.
Thank you.
And I just want to point out real quick that anybody can go to the Fair Political Practices Commission's website and file a complaint, and they will follow up on it. So, yeah, anybody can do it.
And they're actually very helpful. You can actually speak to somebody up there.
I think it's FPP.
Oh, was you who complained about me?
FPPC.org.
It's, yeah, fppc.ca.gov.
All right. All right. Any other comments? Seeing none. Any out on Zoom? Wishing to comment on this particular item? Seeing none. Bring it back for final comments and no motion.
Yeah, there's a motion to introduce the ordinance. It's first reading of the ordinance.
The wrong one. Excuse me. Yes. Entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to accept ordinance number 22-0361, revising Title I, Chapter 11, Conflict of Interest Code.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Arona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Great. Moving on to item number 8. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title?
Discussion and possible action to approve the 2022 Yule Fest Special Event Program.
And-
Schellenberger will be presenting this staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, should be a button there.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm not used to talking to microphones, but good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. Cheryl Schellenberger, Marketing Manager for City of Solvang. So just a little history with Yule Fest activities happening in the month of December has typically been through the Solvang Convention and Visitors Bureau. Last year, the Yule Fest activities were then contracted out by the city to an event production company or marketing event. So this year, they brought it in-house more so. So the TAC on the August 4th meeting created a subcommittee with 2 of the members. They then got other partners and committee members to join that subcommittee. At the September 1st, the subcommittee shared the vision of what the Yule Fest activities would be. One of the things that they were concerned about was having something every night, not just on the weekends. So having a nightly automated light and music show that would kind of go from 10 to 15 minutes on the hour, every hour between 5 and 9. They wanted to bring back the Nisi Adventure, which is a scavenger hunt with participating businesses that can be done at any time. We'd have a tree lighting ceremony, a Yule Fest parade, the candlelight tours, which is done by the Visitor Center, are still going to be producing those, and then just having different entertainment throughout the city. So roaming carolers and jazz band performers. The Nativity Pageant is still going to do their event at the theater. And then we'd also be offering photos with Santa in the park for free. So those are the activities that we've kind of been working on. There's also discussion to add actually more decor that could be visible during the day. So we've been getting some quotes from that as well. So it has been a little bit of a moving target with the budget at the moment, but I'm hoping to finalize that in the next week. The proposed draft budget was just one of the AV companies that I got since posting. I have gotten another proposal and quotes. I also have brought in Parks, Public Works to the table since we are kind of putting some lights and other things to make sure that we have the infrastructure and it can be done well and maintained well as well. So that's my staff report.
Any questions of the staff report at this time?
Good job.
I do have a couple of questions. There had been the talk about possibly a Christmas market. Is that still being considered?
Yes, so that is kind of on the back burner. The the priorities seem to be the nightly show. So if we can go under budget with producing that and then still having budget, it would be a nightly marketplace. So yes, so we are still getting quotes for that.
Can vendors on a Christmas market make up the cost of that?
Yeah, because I was thinking, if you invite, local vendors to participate, then yeah, that creates an environment on its own.
So the direction from the subcommittee was that it would actually be more, the tents would all be in unisync, and there'd be additional decorations for it and lights for it. So it would be, one quote I think was 18,000 for it. So it just, the feel is Christmassy and has a much more cohesive branding to it than just, allowing vendors to come out and do their own thing. So there was a little more extra that was looking into making it a nice Christmassy event.
All right.
On the 10-minute daily light and music show, is that start on the 26th, November 26th?
I believe they're going to start it after the Christmas tree lighting, which is on December 2nd. So those are some of the details we're figuring out.
Okay. So what do we know that's starting on the November 26th? Nothing is according to the schedule of events.
So it would be offering the Nisi Adventure, I think, at this time. But yeah, that would be the only thing.
And then you had one of the Wednesdays, I think it was 21st, the live music in the park. Is that going to be like Christmas music type stuff?
So one of the subcommittee members has highly recommended a musician. So I have not gotten the details as well, but yes.
It can
So
be Robert.
I'm guessing it would be.
It can be Robert.
So I haven't gotten the full details on that, but yes.
That's all I had right now.
I do have one more comment. I see, different numbers on the budget, and there is some budgeted for printed materials. I think, having banners and decorations and standalone ads of information that makes sense. I'd be really careful with things like maps and programs that people tend to not use. A lot of this information can be made available through cell phones, and I just think it's kind of wasteful.
Yep.
So I would just watch that. Yeah. Are you still hiring a Santa? You still out for a Santa?
I still need a Santa on December 10th. So
Okay. Well,
Where's Jim Richardson?
No,
I might have one.
Dan Casera.
I've got a couple.
Okay.
He's not available.
Yeah.
I tracked him down. So yes. So if you
Okay.
have someone, let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know a good one too that runs the electricians unit, or not the electricians, the pipe fitters.
Another one?
Yeah.
Mike Lopez?
Yeah.
He's going to be our Santa most of the days. So
Okay.
he's also not available on the 10th. So, yes.
She's been looking into this.
There you go.
I have one question on the
Go ahead.
tree lights for the light show, the 46,000. Have we looked at other production people? How did you come?
So that's so we actually have a walkthrough with that company on Wednesday, so I'll get a little bit more details. But those would actually be adding something to the existing lights on the trees that are already wrapped, and then they could add colors to it. They can add motion to it. They would be adding, lights like I think the gobo lights against the walls, so it's more interactive. The other AV company that we got a quote from was actually purchasing the lights. So that is where I definitely got Public Works involved. And so we're kind of understanding and crunching those numbers to see exactly what that would look like.
And is part of this budget pay for some of the lights that are going to be wrapping trees
So
throughout the
that's
city?
what Roger's kind of trying to figure out if we can kind of help each other, if it makes sense. But it might be a little bit too late in the game to make it happen for Yule Fest. So that's we're crunching those numbers,
Okay.
trying to figure that out.
Mark has volunteered to wrap.
I have.
You need.
I'll climb the tree, wrap the lights. You betcha. Actually, let's tell that story. On page 57 in your budget, there is it says Solvang Nativity Performance, says $5,000, and then it says $30,000, but asking for half, which is $15,000, but it lists $5,000. Why is that? I don't understand.
Yeah, so on the August 4th TAC meeting, they presented to TAC that because they're back at the theater, they are now trying to kind of rebrand themselves and want to invest in a lot more of upping the production and and they gave a detailed outline of what those costs were. They're projecting a $30,000 investment is what they need to make these changes. They were asking the TAC, their recommendation from the city was going to be a $15,000 if we could come in at that level. The subcommittee for Yule Fest has suggested that if we could do $5,000, that's where that number came from.
Well, that was confusing enough. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other comments or questions?
No.
I'm just going to say I'm very happy that we're doing this in-house and not outsourcing it to some other company. Please keep businesses in the loop. Many of these businesses bring their own entertainment, their own special events, and they would love to contribute to the program. Collaboration is the way to go in a town this small. So
Absolutely.
I just ask you to keep us all on the loop. I see that the Christmas tree, the delivery of the Christmas tree was a huge thing last year, and it's a lot of fun events. So there's little things that we already do that
Absolutely.
can be celebrated and really amplified on the program.
Yep.
So yeah,
I've done some outreach already just to ask businesses to submit to the events calendar to hopefully, to keep pulse of everything that is going on so we can help all promote each other and
Yes.
and keep it a very fun, active community for Yule Fest.
Actually, do you know if the chamber is going to be distributing Christmas trees again this year?
I believe I've heard Tracy mention it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that was always pretty neat. There was Christmas trees all around because of what the chamber did.
Yep, and I know she's talked about, usually the news comes out for it and does some coverage for it as well.
Yeah, a bunch of us go down and help
Yep.
put stands on those things and deliver them and everything. So I'm just, all right,
Yep.
thank you.
I'll bench press them myself too.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And is there any other final comments? Take it out for public comment at this time.
Hi, Sanders Elamine. I need to know if you could name the TAC subcommittee. Can you name the people that are on the subcommittee, please?
Yep, Tracy Baird from the chamber and Kim Jensen.
Tracy and Kim are the two? It's just two?
Yes.
Okay.
Well-
They've gotten other members to join, but it can only be 2 members from the TAC.
So it's Tracy and Kim?
Yes.
Thank
Do you want the full Tourism Advisory Committee or just the 2 members?
Oh, just a
Just the
subcommittee.
two, Yeah,
Thank you.
And it's a Brown Act thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Any comments on Zoom? Seeing none. Taking it back, and looks like no motion at this time.
No.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
Looking
you.
good.
job.
Looking forward to it. Moving on to item number 9. Madam Clerk, would you please read item number 9?
Discussion and possible action to approve the Abbey Agency Tourism Marketing Plan scope of work as recommended by the Tourism Advisory Committee.
So I'm going to go ahead and just introduce over to Connie Anderson. She's our account management for the Abbey Agency.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. As you can see in your packet, our team has put together quite an extensive marketing plan to support the goals of the RFP that the city of Solvang set out for. I won't review the entire marketing plan. I'm going to share my screen and just walk through the highlights of how we got here and some of the key items that we will be moving forward. Okie dokie. All right. So as I mentioned, throughout the months of July and August, we set forth conducting both primary research as well as secondary research to inform the marketing plan. The secondary research include reviewing regional marketing plans from individuals such as Santa Barbara, Santa Ynez Valley. We audited the current outreach channels of Solvang. So what that means is we went to the back end of your social media channels, went into the back end of the website, and we looked at who the followers were, where engagement was coming from geographically and demographically. We also audited the regional entities' marketing channels to identify where there were similarities as well as differences. Through our primary research, we surveyed all of our TAC members, and then we conducted a 3-day in-person immersion, touring different businesses, discussing with them, what they thought of the city, how they wanted to be involved in marketing efforts, how they had seen visitors change over time. We also met with the Visitors Center staff at that time and other stakeholders throughout the community. So what that led us to is the marketing action plan. Our primary goals in that plan are to position Solvang as the ideal destination for travelers who appreciate a trip focused on history, culture, food, and beverage. Through that, we want to make sure that we're increasing economic performance of those visitors coming to the city. So what that means is increased visitor stays through midweek, as well as slower shoulder seasons. The goal behind that is, of course, to drive more sales tax and TOT tax. We also wanted to make sure that when a visitor is in the city, they're able to diversify their experiences and activities that they participate in. So that could be things like the Moke adventures, that could be participating and going to multiple businesses instead of maybe just their one favorite restaurant or winery. And then secondarily, our goals and KPIs really focus on awareness and increasing engagement in some key new markets. We heard from everyone, not most everyone that we talked to in those surveying, and the surveys as well as businesses, that there was a need to make sure that Solvang was a modern, accessible brand and destination, and that it really appealed to a younger audience in nature. And we're not, when we say younger audience, we're thinking about millennials who are really between the ages of 18 and 39 right now. So what does that look like exactly? Well, that looks at a really high level attraction strategy. When we're looking at where tourism is at right now, I think you all saw during COVID-19, there was after the shutdown and then the reopening, there was a resurgence of travel. But now that everything is open again, including international travel, there's a big competition to re-engage your previous travelers as well as to attract new travelers and the right travelers. So for our attraction strategy, what we'll be focusing is leveraging the City of Solvang's brand identity, establishing that brand, and then elevating that brand. We have built on a new creative campaign. The creative campaign is called Like Denmark, Only Closer. It's meant to inspire and educate individuals. The campaign uses lots of videos and HTML5 animated ads. So we're showing off a variety of what Solvang has to offer, not just one static image. Expanding our messaging, positioning Solvang to target audiences, you'll see that we want to highlight that Solvang is still the iconic gem of the Santa Ynez Valley, and that we want to expand beyond the day trip perception and focus on, again, multi-day, weekend, or midweek trips and expanding that. Secondly, we want to make sure that we're expanding and more prominently starting to own our brand within the region of Santa Ynez Valley, emphasizing the access to outdoor experiences, wine country, and more. Our target audiences you'll see here, our primary target audiences will be Los Angeles and Bakersfield, encouraging individuals, again, to take multi-day trips. And then our secondary target audience will be Bay Area, and I think maybe surprisingly, but Fresno and Visalia. We found through auditing your social channels as well as visitor traffic. There was a lot of interest from those areas that has grown over time. And I think that really mirrors a lot of individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic in the Bay Area moved out more eastward in the state for some more land, bigger houses, things like that. So we'll be talking to those audiences through both paid and organic channels. We'll be focusing on 3 personas or audience profiles that the gals group, getaway, family memory makers, and culture seeking couples. The demographic information around those is very defined in the actual marketing plan. Brand messaging, these are all words that we heard when we did our survey and our immersion tour. These are things that every individual really wanted us to highlight and make sure that Solvang was known for. Things like one of a kind, quirky, memorable, historic, unexpected Danish village. Placemaking, focusing on, where you are in the region, and then brand voice, making sure, again, we focus on uniqueness, Danish culture, happiness, memorable, quaint, magical, eclectic, whimsical, and adventurous. And then brand pillars, these are really 5 buckets that we'll always gear our content around. We'll want to make sure that we are aligning everything we do around these brand pillars. If we were to survey every individual who came to Solvang in a year, we would want them to have engaged in one, if not multiple of these brand pillars, and remember Solvang for these unique brand pillars. So to support these pillars, we have a social media content calendar. This is a sample of what that looks like, but this is how we share content throughout the month, focusing on encouraging people to engage with our content. You'll see UGC written on here. What that means is user-generated content. So we've been engaging with lots of influencers who are in the region or sharing about Solvang and resharing their content. We've actually had great results with resharing influencers' content. We've had over 2 million views on Instagram of this Solvang page because of influencers in the past couple of months. We partnered with Visit California on an Instagram video that they did that had really great results. So that was very fun to see to come to fruition. Paid media strategy. This is where a large portion of the budget will go each year. We need to, again, attract people and pull them into the Solvang message, get them onto the website, and encourage them then to book a stay. We will be focusing on an evergreen strategy, meaning that since we launched our ad campaign earlier this month, we will keep ads on, but we will strategically at times increase ad spend and decrease ad spend. We will also change out the advertising creative to align with what information and messaging is most important to Solvang. So right now we're working on updating the advertising to be about Yule Fest, and those will all launch no later than November 15th, so that anyone that we're targeting is learning about Yule Fest, encouraged to then book their winter trip here. And then if they're coming onto our social media channels, or going to the Yule Fest landing page, they're also seeing it there. So it's really an integrated message. Website experience. Through our audit, we learned that the website is built on quite an old platform. I think it's over 7 years old. So there are some limitations on updating content. So our focus right now is going through and updating as much content as we can. We've specifically been working with Cheryl to focus on updating events, as we know that those show up on the homepage. They're very important when people are on the website. So that has been our initial focus, and we will work on updating other information on the website throughout the year. Okay, finally, these are some of our recommendations specifically for public relations, partnerships, and collaborations. I mentioned earlier, we've already worked with Visit California on an Instagram post. We've also been working with them on public relations pitches every month. We've been highlighting unique activities that you can do in Solvang, new activities, different things like that. And so those have been helping to get the message out to a broader audience. We've had some meetings with Visit Santa Ynez Valley about partnering with them on different campaigns and are continuing to move that conversation forward. And then we have plans and in the future are hoping to really work on ambassador collaboration. So highlighting some of the local celebrities, so to speak, of Solvang, helping business owners really focus on how they can be ambassadors for the destination. And through that, creating a local business toolkit so that all of the advertising we're creating, whether that's for Solvang in general or for Yule Fest, the businesses can use those messages on their own platforms to help, again, with integrated efforts and that collaborative message that any visitor may see. And that is the quick overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of the staff report at this time?
No.
Yeah, I've got one. I'm
Go ahead.
curious more than anything else on your geographic targets where you're picking Los Angeles and Bakersfield. I'm curious why Bakersfield instead of perhaps like the Inland Empire, you know, Ontario, Pomona, Montclair, that area.
Yes, so the Ontario Inland Empire area is included in the greater Los Angeles DMA, and I can call that out in the plan to make sure that you see that that will be included as well.
I know coming to Solvang, having lived down there for many years, coming to Solvang for a lot of those people down there was a big thing to do. And I would think we'd have more access with them coming than perhaps Bakersfield, which would have to come through Cuyama. And
I have a whole theory on Bakersfield and Fresno.
Let's hold that thought, though.
No, I know it's a good theory. It's just it's a not demographics, but it's a logistics. I mean, Bakersfield is Ventura, and Fresno has been Pismo for years. So that's the point I'm making. I'm not making fun of anybody from Bakersfield or Fresno.
But it is a little bit different. It's only a 2-lane highway to get over here from that spot.
126, and you're in Ventura at the beach.
Yeah.
Hot summer day.
Yep.
And I was not casting disparaging on Bakersfield.
I wasn't saying
I have a
you
lot of
were.
friends there. So.
Jim, thank you.
Are there any other questions of the staff report?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm going to have to refer you back to what was put in the agenda, the actual plan that was sent to us, because that's what I had a chance to look at before your presentation. I noticed you corrected a couple of things that I saw in your presentation. And I'm going to start off by saying I'm old and I don't know anything about social media. So I'm going to say some stupid things in this diatribe, but allow me to go through a couple questions. On page 63, it says the role of the destination marketing organization. It says the city of Solvang is a destination marketing organization. I thought you were the marketing organization.
So a destination marketing organization is described as the entity that is holding the brand. So we're the marketing agency that supports you as a marketing organization. That's a term just used throughout the industry.
Okay, again, my ignorance. Sorry, thank you.
No worries at all. I know the marketing stuff has a lot of jargon to it, so I'm happy to answer all questions.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of jargon in here. By the way, in the engaging entertainment, I think it's on page 81, you talk about trying to bring the kids in and everything else, and you talk about having spoken with a bunch of businesses. But our major TOT producer in this city is Alisal, and it's not talked about in here at all. No horseback riding, hiking, all the stuff that you can do in that ranch, and I see nothing of that in this presentation. Also, there's no reference to the virtual reality rooms, the escape rooms, all of those types of things that kids would and do like to do, and they are businesses here, and it seems to me they've been somewhat ignored. And then you make statements that, on page 84, it says Solvang should work closely with the chamber. What makes you think we don't? That statement really perplexed me a bit. You've got in here, okay, I'm going to skip that. Excuse me. You say now that where am I? Page 86. Now that the destination is expanding its work in destination marketing to strategically attract travelers, this year is critically important for laying the foundation. Now, I mean, it never was before, is what it sounds like and what you're saying, but I don't know that that's true. On page 87, it says, and the city of Solvang and San Ynez Valley should. Who is San Ynez Valley? Who specifically are you talking about when you say San Ynez Valley? Is it Visit SYV? Because it doesn't say that. It just says Solvang and San Ynez Valley should collaborate. I think that should be a little bit more than that. Let me take you down to the website landing page, which is on page 89, talks about evergreen content. Can you tell me what evergreen content is, please?
Yes, absolutely. So evergreen is content that is not specific to a season or an event. It's not something that will update every year. So it might be a list of best Danish bakeries or ways to get to Solvang. It might be great outdoor adventures, things that you can do year round.
Okay, thank you. Over on page 90, you say expand fam trips. Okay, so I don't know what a fam is. I assume it's family trips.
No, it's familiarization.
It's who?
Familiarization trips.
Ah, see, there's my ignorance of
travel.
social media.
To travel.
Because it's not explained on here. It just says fam trips to bring journalists in the market. I don't know what that means, so thank you. Appreciate that, Robert.
It's an old travel agent term from the 60s and 70s.
Ah, I thought this was all new stuff. Sorry, that was a joke. Let's see, what have I got over here? Okay, now here's the one that irritates me a great deal. On page 96, it says Scandinavian experiences, Norwegian, Dutch, Danish, and more. What does Norwegian or Dutch have to do with us?
I think that may be an oversight and should not be included.
Oh, I think so. Because it really
Yes.
suggests that someone does not know Solvang very well. And then if you go to page 97, it talks about Dutch again. This is not cool.
My apologies about that.
Well, let's try page 104. Ambassador collaboration underneath that, ambassador opportunities in market. There's kilt guards. We don't wear kilts here. What are kilt guards? Or is that just your lack of knowledge of the family name Clickguard, who your people didn't bother to get the spelling correct, that are the people that manage the visitor center?
I can check into that. I don't know. I believe that was probably a typo that was like auto-corrected when it was written, but that was not the intention.
Mm. And then it says members of Solvang. Who are members of Solvang?
As I mentioned in the presentation, our hope is to create a list of ambassadors and individuals who can talk on behalf of Solvang, who can help be voices to maybe do Facebook Lives, or for when we have familiarization tours influencers in market, they can help to show those individuals around.
Okay, so that should say ambassadors, Solvang ambassadors, not members of Solvang. I didn't know if that meant residences or who that was, so I would like a little bit better definition of that. It says on here on the same page, you did a community survey. Where are the results of that? Can I get a copy of that?
Yes, we are still working to distribute that more. The response rate was not as high as we would like it to be, but we can absolutely send you the few results that we've received to date.
Okay. I'm curious as you go down to, where am I? Page 104 again. Here we are. Down under annual report, it says provide updates. The chamber is our connection to the locals. Provide updates and on an annual basis release an annual impact report. Who provides this report to whom?
The suggestion through the survey, the TAC survey, was that we, the Abbey Agency, would work with the city to provide an annual impact report of the campaigns that had launched, some of the large metrics around impressions, visitors to the website, TOT, sales tax revenue, and that would be provided to the chamber for distribution.
Interesting. Okay.
Can I chime in on that one?
Yeah, please.
So I think before my position started, the direction the Abbey Agency was really leaning hard on the chamber for distribution on stuff. So now that I've come in and been able to recruit some distribution lists and emails and databases, we are now able to distribute on our own. So I think it was more of just they would create the annual report, and it was just that they would have the Chamber of Commerce get the distribution out. But that's something we can easily do now with my position.
Okay.
So.
That helps. Thank you. Down on the bottom, page 105, it says leverage bandwango. That's not capitalized, so I assume it's a term and not a company or a product. So what is bandwango?
It is a company and they don't capitalize their own name. So that doesn't help when they're a proper noun and don't capitalize their own name.
I see.
They're a marketing companies, so they think that's fancy, I guess, is to not capitalize their own name. What they do is they are a marketing technology platform. So they work with local businesses to help local businesses list their services, list descriptions about themselves, and to offer coupons or different offer codes if you go and check into that business. We can use that information on the website or the landing page to do different contests and encourage visitors to come in and go to many different businesses. And, we could say, okay, if you go to 10 different businesses, you could be entered to win a one-night stay later, in 3 months or something like that. So it's a marketing technology platform that just really eases the burden on pulling together all that information, and it allows autonomy for all those businesses to offer coupons or different offers and then to remove them all on their own. So it wouldn't, if they wanted to change their mind about something they offered, they wouldn't have to contact the city. There wouldn't be a delay. They could go and update that information immediately and automatically themselves.
Thank you. On the top of the next page, second paragraph, it says, future years media can and should incorporate traditional media tactics as possible, including print and out-of-home opportunities. What does that mean? Out of home?
Yes, out of home means it could mean billboard advertising. It could, we could look at traditional broadcast, which may include radio, TV, streaming TV, different things like that. Right now, our media campaign is just focused on digital tactics. So we think that there's opportunities, like that says, to add print, maybe selected billboards, maybe partnerships on billboards with different organizations as well.
One last comment. It's not on here. A business owner showed me an Instagram of Burkholm's bakery that presumably was done by you that said a great German bakery. I'm really beginning to question your knowledge of Solvang.
I apologize for that. I believe I don't know the exact post that you're referring to. I do believe there was one that was reshared by an influencer, and we reached out to that influencer and asked them to change that verbiage on the post. It was getting high traction though, so the team did share it, considering that it had Burkholm's featured in it. I can go back and double check, but I believe that is the case of that post that you mentioned.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions this time? We'll take it out for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this particular item out in the public? I don't have any speaker slips. Seeing none, we'll bring it back out to Zoom. Wait, it's Connie out there on Zoom. Final comments. Is there a motion to approve at this time?
I'll make a motion to
Commissioners?
approve, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
No.
Councilmember Rona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right. Thank you. And moving on, is there any AB 1, 2, 3, 4 reports at this time? If you want to say about the CTC. Oh, yeah, you can, that would be good, yeah. You
Trying
do
to
that.
figure out which meetings we went to that we're supposed to talk about. I attended the SBCAG meeting, the LAFCO meeting, and then the APCD, the Air Pollution Control District meetings. All three in a sequence without lunch. It was terrible. We had got some updates on what was going on. The APCD, I did want to say something about that. They reported that the Santa Barbara County air quality is one of the best it's been in years. And this last year, the only day that it wasn't in a very high quality rating was with the Alisol fire, because the smoke affected the air pollution. But other than that, it was terrific. That's it. Thank you.
And then Mark and I also attended the California Transportation Commission. There was just a little reception that was hosted by SBCAG and the directors. We got to meet all of the people that were part of that particular commission that divvy out all the money from the feds all the way down to the state for all of the SB1 projects for our area. So again, those projects are like what you see on the Highway 101, HOV lane, roundabouts on Highway 101, anything to do with US 101, 246, 154, 166, all in those areas around here. So it was nice to get to see them kind of in an informal setting. And we had a nice dinner. So that's the end of my report. And with that, I will close the meeting at 9:02. Thank you all for being here.